everyone. Welcome to Inside Winston Cup Racing. We're at the half-a-mile Martinsville Speedway in Martinsville, Virginia. One of the toughest tracks on the circuit. A lot of action always, and certainly some disappointments for some. This is where they ran the Goodys 500 this past weekend. We have a lot for you in this half hour of Inside Winston Cup Racing, and here's what's coming up.
Well, it's been the men of maturity coming to the forefront of American sports this year. There's been George Foreman in boxing. In baseball, it's Nolan Ryan. In Winston Cup stock car racing, though, it's 51-year-old Harry Gant, and he did it again at Martinsville for his 5th NASCAR victory of 1991 and 4th in a row. We'll have all the action from the Goodys 500 coming up.
The Busch Grand National Series has earned the love of the fans and respect of the sponsors. We'll take a look at where the series stands as it approaches its 10th anniversary.
Preparing the pits prior to a race takes time and plenty of attention to detail. For Danny Scholl and Ronnie McLeod of the Western Auto Team, putting together the pits is like creating a work of art. We'll show you how coming up.
Today's show is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Miller Genuine Draft, cold filtered for real draft taste. So get out of the old, get into the cold. And by Goodyear, maker of the world's most successful tires, the Goodyear Eagles.
One car manufacturer has more NASCAR victories than anyone. Winning over 350 NASCAR races over 4 decades of racing. That car manufacturer is Ford. And that kind of winning performance goes beyond the winner's circle.
All of these championship-winning drivers have one thing in common: Goodyear Racing Eagles. The race-winning technology that's found in the Goodyear Racing Eagles can also be found in the world's best-selling line of high-performance street tires, Goodyear Eagle Street Radials. The champions know, and it's why we say the best tires in the world have Goodyear written all over them.
Filtered Miller Genuine Draft. For those who've discovered its real draft taste, the world is a very cool place.
It's great. They fixed up that old truck and went out for their big driving lesson. You know, they'll never forget this day as long as they live.
Here's to fathers and sons, first-time driving lessons and comfortable blue jeans. Wrangler.
There's always a lot of action here on this half-a-mile track in Martinsville, Virginia, and certainly it is frustrating for some drivers. And the Goodys 500 was no exception as far as that action is concerned. For the highlights of that, let's go to Randy. But Randy, before the race, there was some news concerning a crew chief change.
Well, Ned, there have been a couple of crew chief changes over the past couple of weeks in Winston Cup Racing. Of course, Sandy Jones has joined the Quaker State Buick team, driver Brett Bodine, and that has proven out to be a good combination already as Brett is qualified on the outside of the front row here at Martinsville. Of course, Mark Martin won the 3rd straight pole position here at Martinsville. Another crew chief that made a change here heading into Martinsville was Doug Williams. Doug, you left the 66 team with Cale Yarborough. You came over here to help out Derek Cope. Good opportunity for you.
Yes, Randy, you know, it's a good career move, a good career opportunity. Not that I didn't have a lot of fun, a lot of good hopes and wishes over with the 66, but sometimes you just got to move on. And right now we're coming over with the Pearl Letter Chevrolet, hoping we can start winning races and hopefully go after championship next year.
Well, I'm sure you guys will be a good combination as well. Thanks a lot, Doug.
Thank you, Randy.
In other news learned after the Goodys 500, Lake Speed was released as driver of the Phillips 66 Pontiacs owned by Cale Yarborough. Replacing Speed in the remaining 5 Winston Cup races is Busch Grand National rookie contender Jeff Gordon. It was also learned that veteran Busch Grand National driver Jimmy Hensley will replace Dick Trickle as pilot of the Team 3 Pontiacs in the Holly Farms 400.
Today's Winston Cup highlights are brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?
Mark Martin was able to lead the first few laps from his pole position, but the Unocal bonus of $136,000 and change seemed safe as he started to slide back in the field right off the bat. Brett Bodine, after starting on the outside of the front row with Mark, led the field up 32 for the first time when he took the spot from points contender Ricky Rudd on lap 16 of the 500. Alan Kulwicki was also an early contender when he blew by Brett just 10 laps later to take the lead. But then the yellows began to fly. The second of 15 cautions came when Chad Little and Bill Elliott crashed in turn 4. Davey Allison had a dismal day. This was the first of 2 cautions that he contributed to the cause. 7 laps later, Ricky Rudd got tapped by Jimmy Hensley and around he went. After a brief run at the front by Jimmy Spencer in the Banquet Frozen Food Chevy, Rusty Wallace, who started 7th, pushed his Pontiac to the point on lap 125. And from there on in, it was a race between he, Harry Gant, and Brett Bodine. Cautions continued to slow the pace as Petty and Rudd wrecked in turn 2 on lap 162. Richard attempted to recover, but liquid poured from his Pontiac and he pirouetted again before finding the pits. As the race headed for halfway, Harry Gant hounded Rusty for the lead, and on lap 196, shot out front for the first time since taking his 3rd straight checkered flag at Dover. Gant, gunning for number 4, took control in the same car with the same engine as the previous 3 wins. He led 226 of the next 304 circuits. There were 2 more wrecks that would slow his assault. The first when Rick Wilson, Derek Cope, Hud Strickland, and Jeff Bodine bounced off each other in turns 1 and 2. But it wasn't until after the restart for Rick Wilson's lost wheel that Harry's streak appeared to be halted. On lap 376, Harry headed into turn 3 and left the door cracked, and Rusty Wallace tried to squeeze in. And when it was over, Harry's Oldsmobile looked to be out of contention, and Wallace was. But from 12th place on the restart, miraculously with a banged-up race car, Gant began to march through the field once again. By lap 420, he passed Earnhardt for 6th. Then Mark Martin for 4th. A few laps later, he took over 3rd from Terry Labonte. And by lap 448, he was battling Brett for the lead. The 2 bumped and Gant nearly spun, but back he came. And with 46 laps to go, he went to the front for the final time. One last caution came before he was conceded the win. Harry drove the final 18 laps in a curtain call before the 46,000 fans. And when the checkered flag fell, they were all left wondering, what about win number 5?
Yeah, everybody's taking a shot at me there. You know, it's easy to run under somebody and turn them around. I think I paced everybody clean today. I don't think I put a mark on anybody's car from the right-hand side. You know, they ought to know that man leading the race, he's going to come to the bottom of the racetrack. He's his groove. You know, he's the leader. He's not going to run up a racetrack and let somebody drive by, you know, and everybody can duck under you like that and turn you around, you know, but I just kept cool, and I figured, well, I'll pace him back in a minute, you know, and so I did there and paced him clean, never touched him. So that's what it's all about.
Well, there's only one more short track remaining, and that's the North Wilkesboro Speedway. They're running today, and we'll have that for you here next week. We need to take a short break. Still to come is a story on the Busch Grand National Series and how it has risen to the forefront. And as we leave you for this break, here's the balance of the finishing order for the Goodys 500.
The Mustang. Wild, carefree, spirited, a proud symbol of America's heritage. It was the inspiration for the legendary Ford Mustang sports car, the sexiest car of the 60s that became an instant classic. Now, through the Danbury Mint, you can own a magnificent replica of the car that took America by storm and made automotive history. This exquisitely crafted model of the 1966 Mustang will captivate you with its extraordinary workmanship and meticulous attention to detail. Hand assembled from over 140 parts, its body, chassis, drivetrain, and engine block are painstakingly crafted in heavy die-cast metal. The body hand-sanded, hand-painted, oven-baked, then hand-waxed to a gleaming finish. Meticulous in every detail, its precisely fitted doors open and close. The hood lifts to reveal its engine block, chromed air cleaner, even painted battery caps. So realistic, you can almost feel the incredible power of the Mustang's 289 cubic inch V8. No detail is spared to assure the most precise reproduction of this automotive legend. From the distinctive Mustang grille to its unique rear profile with triple panel tail lamps. Under the trunk lid, even the spare. Inside, two-tone seating, a sporty steering wheel that actually turns the wheels, even a 4-on-the-floor stick. Underneath, more incredible detail, right down to the dual exhausts and gas tank. Each of its 143 parts is inspected, polished before painting, then hand-assembled by skilled craftsmen. It's hand-waxed and buffed to original showroom luster, then shipped with a certificate of title registered in your name. Call now to bring this magnificent model into your home. Available only by subscription through the Danbury Mint, this superb replica may be yours for far less than you'd expect to pay for a collectible of such extraordinary quality.
Use your credit card and call toll-free. We'll ship your Mustang. Charge your account just $29.50 a month plus shipping for 3 months. Satisfaction guaranteed. Call 1-800-521-4200.
You're invited to the 50th anniversary party for the granddaddy of golf tournaments, the Crosby. McLean Stevenson hosts a celebrity bash starring Vince Gill.
When I call your name.
Plus Gary Morris, Glenn Campbell, Mickey Gilley, Johnny Mathis, Pat Boone, and America's favorite comic, Bob Hope. The 1991 Crosby Clam Bake, Wednesday at 11, 10 Central on TNN.
Man, I could use a vacation.
Join Rusty Wallace for the ultimate vacation. Enter the Miller Genuine Draft Racing Cruise Sweepstakes and win a week-long all-expense-paid cruise to the Caribbean aboard the Norwegian Cruise Line Seaward, or one of hundreds of other prizes. To enter, call 1-900-288-4TNN. Calls cost 95 cents per minute, or send your name, address, and phone number on a postcard to this address. You must be 21 or older to win. Telephone entry deadline October 28th. Postcard deadline October 30th.
See you in the Caribbean.
Winners announced November 10th on Inside Winston Cup Racing.
The NASCAR Busch Grand National drivers were off this past weekend. Their next race is the All-Pro Auto Parts 300 next Saturday at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. The Busch Series has become one of the fastest growing sports in America as far as auto racing is concerned. In fact, they have emerged as the number 3 spectator drawing phase of auto racing in our country. Bill Weber takes a look at where the Busch Series has come from and where it's going.
The Busch Grand National Series runs a 31-race schedule, visiting the super speedways and the trademark short tracks. It is NASCAR's AAA league, one step away from the majors, the Winston Cup. The Grand National Series has grown up since its birth in 1982, and its rapid rise can be traced to 2 essential elements: close competition and television coverage.
It's just turned around completely. You know, we went from Saturday night bull rings every race to a deal where we're in front of millions of people, you know, all the time, a national TV audience about every week. You know, it's amazing how much it's grown. Where it's going to end up, I don't know.
If we had live television at all 31 events with a lot of in-car cameras, I think it could really take off. You know, I just think it's exciting racing. I think a lot of it's the length of the races. They're about half the distance of Winston Cup races, and I think that makes for pretty exciting finishes quite often.
The Grand National Circuit has earned a huge following, and in 10 seasons has built a solid foundation.
You see that it's at a point where it can stand alone on its own apart from the Winston Cup races?
Well, I think so. You know, you're still going to see your Earnhardts and Waltrips, you know, at the tracks, you know, Charlotte and Dover and places like that. But, you know, I think we have good races. You know, you go to South Boston and Myrtle Beach and Orange counties and Martinsville, you know, we put on a good show. And, you know, I think from the stands, you look at the stands and see the people, they realize that we put on a good show too. And, that's what, you know, we've been striving for this, and it's come to a point now where I think we can stand on our own 2 feet.
The series serves as a marketing venue for companies looking for exposure, but not at the expense of a multi-million-dollar Winston Cup deal.
We've got a lot of sponsors over here. You know, you look up and down through pit road, and, you know, you've got these national sponsors, major sponsors on all these cars, and you didn't have that to start with. It's just, you know, 1 or 2. back when this thing first started, and the quality of cars have gotten better. You know, you can compare them to the Cup cars, roll them out side by side, and, you know, tell very little difference in them.
While the quality has improved, so has the cost.
$10,000 a race, you know, that you're looking at in the neighborhood of $300,000, that's none too much money at all. You know, matter of fact, you'll have to struggle at that. You're probably looking anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 a race now, you know, $500,000, and then you can run competitive and keep a good team together.
Not every Winston Cup driver plans to compete into his 50s like Harry Gant has done. So each season, the series looks to harvest new talent from the crop of competitors in the Grand National field. In fact, when the BGN Series stopped here at Watkins Glen this summer, it was the first road course race in nearly 4 years, and another test toward preparing Grand National drivers for all the demands made in the Winston Cup Series.
Winston Cup is very hard to get. It's hard to get into, and when you get over here, you've got the competition the way it is today. I've had a lot of problems over here, but you know, I'm going to stick with it, and hopefully I'll be a success.
Larry Pearson was a success in the Grand National Series, winning 2 drivers' titles in the 80s. But like defending Grand National champion Chuck Bound, finding a regular Winston Cup ride is a tough challenge. Why?
You got to run good on super speedways in the Busch Division to make it in Winston Cup. You know, a lot of times our guys in Busch Division will win races on short tracks or do real good in the points and really run good at the Hickories and the South Bosses, but they get to Darlington and Dover and Charlotte and they're kind of average, or they don't really show up. That's kind of what made me get better. That's kind of what got me into Winston Cup. You know, I would go to Dover and Charlotte and I would run against Harry Gant and Dale Earnhardt. We'd race each other and I'd outrun them or they'd outrun me. And those guys, crew chiefs, would see that on Saturday. They'd think, well, maybe that guy can do good in the Winston Cup car, and that's really how I got my opportunity.
Of course, several veteran drivers have found success and satisfaction running the Grand National circuit. Still, the series serves as a springboard for drivers seeking a Winston Cup ride.
It's definitely where I want to be down the road is Winston Cup, and I think everybody wants to make it to Winston Cup. You know, that's just the prestige of Winston Cup. But Busch Grand National is an excellent series. Even if you if you don't want to move on, it's an excellent series to be in and stay in. But I think for a young driver like myself, I want to go to Winston Cup, and Busch Grand National is a stepping stone to that.
Look for some major changes in the schedule of the Busch Series for 1992, and as it continues to grow, we'll be right here to report all the action to you. We need to take a short break. Still to come is a story on how they set up the pits and all the action that goes on there. We'll also have the mailbox, so you stay with us.
We want everything. When we walk away, when we're finished and we walk away, if they said, gentlemen, start your engines, boom, it would all happen and we'd be ready to go with no problems at all.
Where can you go on Goodyear Wrangler radials? So where can you go on Goodyear Wrangler radials? Just about anywhere you want. Put on a set of Goodyear Wrangler radials, and you'll know why we say the best tires in the world have Goodyear written all over them.
One manufacturer has more NASCAR victories than anyone. More NHRA Pro Stock victories than anyone. More consecutive IMSA GTO victories at Daytona than anyone. And more off-road victories in the last 5 years than anyone. That manufacturer is Ford. No wonder nobody enjoys the weekend like Ford.
Before this, you never heard of cold filtered. Before this, you never heard of genuine draft taste in a bottle. Now hear this. Get out of the old, get into the cold.
Cold filtered taste what it's all about. Never heat pasteurized, so the rich, smooth taste don't cook out. For those who discovered its real draft taste, the world can be a very cool place.
Get out of the old, get into the cold. Miller Genuine Draft.
How hot can it get inside your car's engine? 570 degrees under extreme conditions. Take a leading motor oil. Take Mobil 1. Of course, Mobil 1 costs more, But under extreme conditions, when you see what can happen to conventional motor oil, it doesn't pay to play with fire. Mobil 1, isn't your car worth the extra protection? Rick Mears and Mobil 1 finished in the winner's circle at the Indy 500. Mobil 1, the choice of champions.
Watch TNN Motorsports Magazine. It's the latest word before the green flag. 11:30 a.m. Eastern, Sports Sunday.
The spring event at North Wilkesboro was a rough and tumble affair. Heading into the Holly Farms 400, the final short track race of the season, Ricky Rudd was trying to turn the tides on Dale Earnhardt in the chase for the championship, and Harry Gant was going for 5 in a row. We'll have all the highlights next week.
The old saying is NASCAR is one big family. Well, when you take a close look, it's actually several families. We'll introduce you to some racing relatives that spend Sundays on the Winston Cup circuit.
We'll also talk with veteran Busch Series driver Jimmy Hensley. This longtime campaigner has made a little go a long way, taking his sponsorless Oldsmobile to victory lane 3 times this season. You'll meet the Virginia gentleman next week.
When you're sitting up in the grandstand looking down on the pits at a Winston Cup race, you might think that things look a little unorganized in the pits with all the various things they have scattered all over the ground there. But believe you me, it is very organized. And this week, we take a look at a couple of the fellows who are charged with the responsibility of setting up the pits for one Winston Cup team.
If a Winston Cup driver is fortunate enough to go the entire distance in a race, his pit crew may make as many as 10 or 12 pit stops, and that's a lot of work. But long before the first pit stop, or the green flag falls for that matter, each team's individual pit must be set up with the proper pieces, which allows the crew to perform with precision. Setting up the pits for the Western Auto team is Danny Scholl and Ronnie McLeod, and watching them is like watching 2 artists perform.
As Harry was shooting, he kind of said that looks like pit art. I mean, the way you guys, do you guys consider yourselves somewhat artists doing that?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. We have, like I said, we've worked together for 5 years. We have refined the things that we do so that there's not a lot of lost motion because there are times when it's a rainy morning and you can get started late. And you just have to get everything done in a hurry. So you have to know where you're going, what you're going to do, who's going to do what, so that you can get it done in a short period of time if you need to.
Having 2 guys totally devoted to preparing the pits allows other crew members to concentrate on preparing the race car.
The one thing that we feel very comfortable with is you may have noticed you have not seen Jeff Hammond out here. Jeff has total confidence in Ronnie and me to set up the pit. He will not come to this pit until he's put Darrell in the car. Then he comes here and he looks at us, is everything ready to go? We say, yes, sir, everything's ready to go. And he will, and there's never any question as to the ability of the pits to take care of the car.
Everything right down to the smallest of detail is meticulously covered by both Danny and Ron. Air hoses are tie-wrapped and taped, jacks are oiled, air guns are checked, the pit board is cleaned, lug nuts are loaded, spare parts are brought in, the umbrella goes up, and dozens of other things are checked and rechecked.
Do you guys go behind each other, check each other, anything like that?
Occasionally, but rarely would we do something like that. Like I said, Danny and I have worked together long enough. I know he knows what he's supposed to be doing, and I know what I'm supposed to be doing. One of the big things we do is we check for air leaks and that kind of thing, just to make sure that we don't have a problem on a pit stop. We want everything, when we walk away, when we're finished and we walk away, if they said, gentlemen, start your engines, boom, it would all happen and we'd be ready to go with no problems at all.
Is the pit setup, is it pretty much the same at every racetrack? Do you bring the same things, or are there different things for a different racetrack?
It depends somewhat on the racetrack. There are some racetracks where we bring out a large generator and our torch and welder, and that really depends on the pit's proximity to the garage area. And if Darrell had a problem and had to come in, would we be able to go to the garage area and work on the car, or would we be able to come behind pit wall and work on the car, which would be the quickest, which would be the easiest, and we use that as a determining factor as to what comes out. But most of the equipment comes out every week. There are just a few odds and ends that we change from track to track.
And what happens when the checkered flag falls?
That's another part of our job. We set it up and make it look pretty, and then we tear it down every weekend also. When the race is over, after we come back from victory lane, hopefully, then we have about another hour, 30, 45 minutes to an hour of tear down and making sure everything's back in the box, in the place it's supposed to go. So next weekend, when we roll it back out again, everything's ready and we can drop it right where it's supposed to go and put it right back together again.
And when a team's day is short, putting away all those pieces that make pit stops possible looks a lot more like work as opposed to a work of art.
Today's mailbox is brought to you by Miller Genuine Draft.
Our question this week comes from Richard Sapp of Bedford, Texas, who writes, do the Winston Cup drivers use both the left and right feet, left for the brake and right for the accelerator when maneuvering their car around the racetrack, or is this just a characteristic of Brett Bodine's driving style? Well, Richard, we'll get Alan Kulwicki, who drives the Hooters Ford, to answer that question for you.
It's really a characteristic of the driver's style. I would say the majority of drivers use their left foot to brake and the right foot for the gas. That's the way I do it. I'd say that's the way the majority of them do it. But there are a few guys that use their right foot for both the gas and the brake. I seem to be a little bit quicker using both feet.
If you have any race questions, you can write to us at Inside Winston Cup Racing, Box 240-417, Charlotte 28224. If we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller Genuine Draft jacket free. Fans 21 and under will receive an IWCR cap and T-shirt.
Our time's up for today. Hope you enjoyed the show, and you be sure to be with us here next week on TNN for more on Inside Winston Cup Racing.
Today's show has been brought to you by Ford and your local Ford dealer. Winning the world over with 1991 trucks that are built Ford tough. By Miller Genuine Draft, cold filtered for real draft taste. So get out of the old, get into the cold. And by Goodyear, maker of the world's most successful tires, the Goodyear Eagles. Communications for Inside Winston Cup Racing Crew provided by Racing Radios, Forest Park, Georgia, the official communications of NASCAR. Transportation for Inside Winston Cup Racing provided by Fleetwood Enterprises, makers of a full line of excellent recreational vehicles. And by your Carolina Ford dealers. Nobody outsells Ford in the Carolinas.
One of my biggest influences was Dolly Parton, for the fact that I remember watching her on TV many, many times and hearing her talk about her songs and singing them. And I said, one of these days, that's what I want to do. I want to be just like her. When I'm out there trying to sing a song, I'm always thinking of couples, a man and a woman. And I think it's great when you find a song that can make them communicate with each other.
By your side, I'll stay till we're old and gray.
The Nashville Network has absolutely been great to me, and they've been great for country music.
The thrill of the hunt. Brush up on your hunting skills. Hear what the experts in the field have to say. And enjoy the great outdoors with the Buckmasters. Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, only on TNN. Talent, skill, courage. The competitive spirit of the Old West lives on. The College National Finals Rodeo. Sunday at 1 p.m. Central on TNN, the Nashville Network.
At Auto Trend, we believe that every car deserves the right tire and wheel. That's why at Auto Trend, our tire specialists will help you make a winning combination every time with tires like Sumitomo, high-performance tires for today's automobiles. At Auto Trend, we don't just sell tires and wheels, we sell a perfect match. Auto Trend, right tires for the right car from the right people. Auto Trend, keeping you and your car in perfect balance.
These men experience significant hair loss, but thanks to the Manny Roberts single hair integration system, he now has a magnificent head of natural hair. He engages in all sports with the confidence of a man with his own hair. Look your best. Learn how with a free color brochure from Manny Roberts, which explains in detail their single hair integration system that's completely undetectable. Call 1-800-456-HAIR. That's 1-800-456-HAIR for that free color brochure. Until there's a better way, there's Manny Roberts.
Bassmasters Classic today, 12:30 p.m. Eastern on TNN.